Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! I was feeling rather hungry for dinner and craving pizza, so I did what anyone does and ordered one. I then got myself in the car and drove to get it because, well, I was hungry. En route to the pizza place, I was behind a Rolls or a Bentley, one of those super expensive and fancy British cars that are more intended as status symbols than actual transportation. Said fancy car had super tinted windows and was being operated rather erratically, all over the road, swerving now and again and then drifting to one side before swerving again. I stayed a good distance behind the car because I might have been bored at night, but it wasn't last night. Driving behind this car for a couple minutes, just watching and waiting for something to get hit, and the car swerves off the road and drives straight through an electrical box on the side of the road. One of the cabinet-sized ones. Not the if you go through this fence, you can forget ever having kids Transformers. Mighty startling boom and a little bit of a light show, as electrical cabinets are not designed to be impacted by negligently driven automobiles. The two occupants of the car pop out as if they had been shoved out by some unseen force. Two teenagers, as a matter of fact, who were flirting and fooling around and not focusing on a road. I start cracking up because who does that at rush hour? I call 911 and report a car accident. But I keep giggling because the pair are now arguing with each other. The dispatcher seems rather alarmed, while I'm laughing at the same time I am calling in a car wreck. I think about explaining what happened but just decided to say, I'm sure the responders will understand. Both occupants appear to be unharmed beyond some seriously damaged egos. The man on the other end just goes, okay. I grab an old jacket that's been kicking around in my back seat and get out the vehicle. The pair are still arguing and screaming. I can't believe you crashed my dad's car, says a girl. I wince at that. I told you to stop, cries the boy. Just shut up and give me your jacket, demands the girl. No way, it's freezing, says the boy. It was around 60 Fahrenheit. Charmer. I cut in with, excuse me, miss. And when she turns around at me with a furious expression, yes? She asks. Here. I toss her the jacket. Already called the police. They should be here soon. I say and walk back towards my car. It was too difficult to keep a straight face much longer. By the time I got back to my vehicle, two cruisers pulled up and discharged two officers. They surveyed the damage. You could see a measure of what the actual on their faces. One officer approaches the pair and the other comes to me, asks what I'm doing. I tell the officer I got the whole thing on dashcam. I pull out the footage and the cop watches the dangerous driving. The final, fateful swerve and the state of the pair. He groans and covers his face with a hand. Can I get a copy of that? He asks. By now a fire truck and an ambulance had rolled up, and several people had walked over as looky-loos are wont to do. I've also shown the final swerve and subsequent car exit to the other police officers, some EMTs and several firefighters. The looky-loos weren't invited. Muffled laughter seemed to be the order of the day. First cop comes back over, retrieves his thumb drive and tells me to delete the clip. Both occupants are underage. I move to comply and I delete the clip and tell my car to format the drive. Best I can do to ensure it stays gone. The pizza place was a little pissed off. I was so late for my pizza that they had to make another, but did very much enjoy hearing the tale of why their power blipped a half hour before. It will also assure everyone reading this that the dashcam footage referred to in the post has been super duper deleted and the police are the only ones with a copy of the video. I have recently come into the possession of a 1947 International pickup truck, a master of a four-wheel drive that looks fantastic now that I've cleaned it up and changed the fluids. Even has the original black diamond inline 6-cylinder engine. Not bad for a barn find. Gorgeous old truck and very desirable as I have come to find out. Now that it's all legal, I have begun driving it regularly and often find myself getting waved at, honked at, and even asked to pull over a couple times so someone could have a look at it. I am constantly getting offers for it as well. It is not for sale. It will never be. It's my most treasured possession already, and I plan on showing it off at different truck rallies and get-together. This incident took place at a local gas station/convenience store. It had started off pretty much a normal day, and I've gotten used to the honks and steering already. Nothing unusual when you own an unusual vehicle to me. I pulled into a local 9-11 to get gas and a snack. Hadn't had breakfast yet that day. I went in, got myself a breakfast burrito and paid for gas, and when I stepped out and made my way back to my truck, I found some teenager sitting behind the wheel of my truck looking as if he was trying to drive it. I yelled before I got to my truck for the kid to get out. It is not his truck. When I got to it, he still hadn't moved and said, "This truck is so cool. Want to sell it?" "It's not for sale, kid. Now get out before I yank you out of it." "But everything is for sale, and I want it." "You're not guessing it. It's not for sale." I then opened the door, at which the kid suddenly bolted and ran off. Kids these days, I muttered to myself, thinking the matter was over. Boy, was I wrong. I had just filled the tank, went back and got my change, taking time to lock the doors this time before going back in and coming back out. When I got back to my truck, there stood the kid with an adult next to him. He said, "My son wants this truck. Hand it over now." Not going to happen. And if you don't back off of a truck you're not getting, I am calling the sheriff and making you back off. You're giving us the truck or we're taking it. I simply pulled out my cell phone and started dialing the non-emergency number, at which the man went white and said, "Hey now, I was just kidding. You want to sell it?" I told him already, points at the kid. "It is not for sale, I won't be. Now I suggest you be gone before the sheriff arrives." They were suddenly gone. But that isn't the end of the matter yet. The sheriff arrived and I described the incident to him, and they checked the security cameras outside the store, but there wasn't much they could do without having seen the incident or having witnesses willing to talk to them. So I went on about my day, doing some shopping at the local Wally World and stopping at a local specialty parts shop to order some parts for the truck that specializes in classic and antique vehicles, and headed home. I got home, and for a few hours everything was fine. I had, however, parked my truck in a secured garage on my property, as I usually do, to keep the truck out of the weather, and considering what happened earlier, good thing too, because as I found out, these two were not done trying to get my truck. Late that evening, just as I had to bed, I heard some unusual noises around the garage. I looked out and saw two figures prowling about the garage, first trying a security window, then trying to pull the garage doors open. So I snuck out my back door with a shotgun in hand, rounds loaded with rock salt and pork rinds. Very painful, but not deadly unless at near point blank range. I load my own shotgun and rifle rounds. Briefly, rock salt when forced into the skin produces an intense burning sensation, and pork rinds glue themselves to human flesh as if super glued to it and must be forcibly peeled away without the appropriate solvents. Extremely painful either way. Next thing these two heard was a ka-ching of a shotgun's round being loaded into a shotgun chamber and froze. Then a quiet but firm voice, "On the ground. Now, both of you." Shortly both were on their faces, hands behind the back on their head, and they lay there until the sheriff arrived. Sheriff arrived and I laid my shotgun aside as they demanded and accepted being cuffed for the time being. They yanked the two off the ground none too gently and pulled him over to the cruiser they arrived in. They questioned me and took the cuffs off after taking possession of the shotgun temporarily and questioned them separately. I told my side of it, making special note that I believed they were after my antique truck, and told them of the earlier incidents that day. They had the unmitigated gall to claim that I had stolen their old truck and had it stashed in the garage and they were just trying to get it back. Honest, I produced the title and registration of the truck and even led them into the garage so they could run the plates. All came back as registered to me and me alone. I had the fun of giving these two a brilliant smile and a wave goodbye as they were driven off and taken to jail. Court date pending at this point. We'll update when I have more information, but may be limited on what I can post here. I got my shotgun back after proving it was mine and having to reclaim it from the department, but no big deal. They are still in jail at this point, charged with trespassing, attempted theft, attempted auto theft, and several other charges. I was there for their initial appearance. And when a judge asked if there was any objection to them being ordered, I of course objected. Yes, I was being vindictive. I stated they wanted my truck so badly they snuck onto my property at night to try to steal it. I fear if they are released, they will try again. The request was denied. Now you'd think this was the end of it, but it gets better. Let's just say an entitled woman tossed her hat into the arena via lawsuit. A small addendum. For those reading my story that intend to create shotgun loads as I have, be careful. Even though the rounds are not considered lethal, you can still easily blind someone if the round hits them on the face, and they can still be lethal at close or point-blank range. This malicious compliance takes place in Czech Republic, where many people are often really grumpy. My girlfriend 30 and I, male 21, were waiting for a bus ride to go to her hometown for a wedding. As you'd expect, we had 3 bags and they were packed to the point where zipping the bag required you to sit on it. Especially her bag as she was one of the bridesmaids. Before we boarded the bus, we had to wait for the passenger who had paid beforehand to reserve seats. My girlfriend and I had not prepaid. We were in somewhat of a line which allowed for the passengers who reserved seats to pass. The line for unreserved seat passengers was essentially respected, except by this woman. She arrived when the line was somewhat informed and decided to stand next to us. As our turn to board was coming up, she quickly scooted in front of my girlfriend and looked forward as if she was completely oblivious to the fact she had done something that was traditionally frowned upon. My girlfriend was obviously quite annoyed and started saying out loud in English. Much of the older generation in this country doesn't understand English very well. Well, that's a witchy thing to do. Can you believe this woman? I was calm as I had counted how many people had already boarded the bus, and there was still a good chance we'd find seats together in the unreserved rows, so I didn't think it called for any type of confrontation. Still, I had calmly responded, "Let's be honest, we can be surprised when witches do witchy things." Looking back, it was unnecessary, but I was also tired and the bags were heavy, so I was a bit impatient. We finally sat down and my girlfriend chose to sit in the 2 free seats behind her. I would have chosen the seats in front of her and then just slowly reclined my seat back every few minutes so that she wouldn't have noticed my little act of revenge. But this ended up being better. It's important to note that the row the woman chose was the last straw with an overhead shelf for bags. The shelf was a little longer in the front, so every person essentially had space for their bag if they moved their bags a little towards the front of the bus. It's also important to mention that the shelf was essentially empty, and I could have placed another 5 bags next to ours if I wanted to. We finally hit the road and the woman is talking on the phone. Loudly, I might add. Saying how she's going to visit her grandson who is so sweet, but he plays metal music in his room and she can't stand the sound of it. After she finishes the call, she takes off her windbreaker and plans to put it above her seat. She finally sees that my bag is directly above her seat, and instead of moving her jacket 35 centimeters to the right on the shelf or sitting her jacket on the empty seat beside her, she decides to confront me in an entitled tone.
"Excuse me, young man, but I can't put my jacket anywhere because your fat bag is in the way."
I was bored, so I decided to act like this was a tragedy. "Oh no, what will we do? Maybe if we put our heads together, we can find a solution." Her face turned from shock to old grandma rage. She yelled back,
"Well, don't you know that the shelf space is for the person directly below the seat?"
"Oh, I am so sorry. I truly didn't know that was like an unspoken rule. So the space above your seat is only for you and a potential passenger next to you?" I say, truly acting sorry and embarrassed.
Yes, it is. So please move it to your spot,"
she says, acting victorious. Of course, right away. I quickly got up and took my girlfriend's bag off the shelf and placed it on a seat where I was sitting next to her. I keep my bag in the exact same spot and plop myself right next to an old woman with a grin. The look on her face was absolutely priceless as she was trying to understand what just happened. I smile at her, taking my headphones out and play some death metal way too loud so that she can definitely hear it. I might have hearing loss. I don't even like death metal, but it was definitely worth it knowing she was annoyed the whole time. My girlfriend was sad I didn't sit next to her for the bus ride, but she ultimately agreed it was the best way to get back at her. This one may have been out of her control due to store policies, but I feel like it counts. Stopped at one of the big home improvement stores, the blue one, on my way home from work. We're redoing our floors and I've calculated we need about 18 boxes of flooring. I get a cart and go to the flooring section and realize, because I've got my tiny Honda, that fitting all 18 boxes could be ridiculous. So I grab a few boxes, figuring I'll learn how to install them tonight, return the next morning in my wife's SUV, and do the rest tomorrow on my day off. However, I don't want someone else to take all that style of floor before I come back. So I purchase all of the flooring I will need at the flooring desk. So I come back the next morning and grab a flat big cart, more than happy to load up the rest of the flooring myself. A dozen boxes at 12 to 30 pounds each. When I ask the woman at the flooring desk, however, she insists I need to go to customer service instead. Okay, so I go there, show them my receipt, and they call the flooring desk. A few minutes later, who do I see approaching? The flooring cashier, of course, had to load all several hundred pounds of flooring onto a different flatbed cart and wheel it to the front. For what it's worth, I utterly failed at installing the floor myself and had to call a contractor.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.